Lastly, we're going to cover the evolution of mating. So, in many species, partners remain together after mating for a breeding season or even longer, resulting in a relationship that's monogamous. However, many animals, other species, have an alternate arrangement, which is having a polygamous relationship, which means that they have several members of one sex mate with only one individual of the other sex. And you can have a polygyny, which is several females with one male, or a polyandry, which is several males with one female. 90% of mammals are polygamous, with one male with many females or one female with many male. However, 90% of birds are monogamous. This makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint because it takes two partners to stay together in order for birds to successfully incubate and procreate. So one bird would need to stay and incubate the eggs while the other goes out and forages for food for both birds. And then once the birds are hatched, it takes many times two birds to go out and forage enough food for the babies. In mammals, that's quite different because there's no issue of tending to the nest. There is no nest. Instead, the fetus grows within the mother's uterus, which allows the mother to continue to forage for food and care for the offspring in her belly. Furthermore, only the mother can secrete the milk needed to feed the young. So in these cases, physically speaking only, the father isn't necessary after conception. The young can often survive under the mother's care alone. So that has an important implication for evolution and mating, because for evolutionary, the purpose of mating would be to procreate the species and to have as many survive as possible. To maximize reproductive success, males and females have a little bit of a different perspective on this, especially for mammals. So males, in order to maximize reproductive success, will try to mate with as many females as possible, and females mate just a few times, so they try to ensure the well-being of each of their offspring. So with this, and take the example of a doe must devote an entire breeding season to carrying the young and then nursing them, or the offspring will not survive. And because of this, the female often gets to do the choosing of whether or not they mate, because they have the biggest burden after the mating occurs, which also relates to courtship and evolution. So a male is, because the female has the final say in whether mating happens or not, the male often has to do the courting. That's why males often have the colorful feathers and have all of the courting behaviors that we have seen. This logic helps explain why human males express a desire for multiple partners and why it's the female in most species who makes the choice about mating. And also, natural selection can also help us understand the role of courtship in monogamous relationships or in human relationships. Men seem to care more. This also can explain mate choice and the differences between men and women. Evolution and natural selection can help us understand those concepts. Men seem to care more about appearance because they are looking for a female partner to care for their young. And women seem to put greater weight on social status because they are getting just the genes from the male. And natural selection likely favored these depending on the role that each would take in reproduction. And that sums it up. Behavior is complicated. Biology versus environment. Either or arguments are increasingly viewed as irrelevant as the constant interaction between the two has become clearer. For most scientific studies now, there is no question of is it biology or genes or environment. Most of the time, they're trying to understand the interaction of genes and environment on a specific phenotype or a specific behavior or psychological disorder. And then also we want to understand, does evolution produce good traits? Well, it produces traits that are favorable to reproduction. But if the trait is good but not favorable to reproduction, there may still remain a large variety within the population. That's it. I will see you next week. Hope you have a good week.